Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown from caringourway.com. And we are preparing for our Beginning Again retreat, which happens October 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It's a 3-hour virtual event to support anyone who is managing life after caregiving ends. And in the weeks before our virtual retreat, I am introducing you to our presenters, and I am happy to have my friend and colleague Dale Power with me today. Hi, Dale. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Denise, it's so nice to be here. Thanks.
You are going to help us with reimagining our life after caregiving ends in your workshop. What I love about it is in your description, you also talk about really reflecting on what our experience during caregiving was. So, in many
Right,
ways, it's almost like the opportunity to reimagine the past experience in order to think through how we can reimagine our current situation.
right.
Tell me how you have figured this out. It sounds awesome.
Many years, many years. I've had a very long journey. My youngest son was born with a very significant heart defect, a couple of them. And when you have that big an anomaly, you have other things lurking in the background, some of which you might know a little bit about, and many of which you don't. And so he had his first open heart surgery at age not quite 3, was in the hospital 30 days. And then they found out while he was there, he had underdeveloped optic nerves, which affected his learning, which nobody told me. And his visual tracking, he was bright, but he didn't visually track as fast. He had a tumor in his thigh, which knocked him out of sports for 3 years when he was about 9. And he had really more than most adults have in a lifetime to deal with. And school was really hard for him. He was dyslexic. And he quit in 10th grade. He just couldn't do it anymore. And I venture to say most adults couldn't do what he went through. So we thought we would find him a great job. We did in Wyoming. Seemed like a great place, healthy air, and out with the cowboys. And he came home and he got a job in a very well-known kitchen and started working as a line cook and became a sous chef. Was very, very good at cooking, but there were a lot of drugs in the kitchen, and there's a lot of stress. And he had both anxiety and didn't know how to handle his stress very well. And so he got endocarditis, and which is a serious inflammation of the heart lining, and he was in the hospital for almost a year. And running a business and trying to get into 27 miles away when you can really only get in on the train because parking is so expensive in the city, it was kind of a nightmare. And he came out and went into rehab and went through rehab, and his friends got him a job, a car, a place to live, and a laptop. And 3 days later, he was dead. And there's just obviously a lot of trauma in that caregiving, and addiction is a different kind of journey. But because of all that, I've had to transform myself a number of times, and I've learned a lot about it, and a lot about not having to take prevailing wisdom, but being able to really understand how to shift your mind into places that will give you tremendous pleasure and enjoyment, and take the lessons out of your work with the person you were caring for, and use those as your own lessons too in going forward. And it's I have had I will say, I know you don't know this about me, Denise. When I started figuring out my own path, somebody offered me a part-time gig when I was just a young mom, and I like to cook. And she said, I'm running bus trips to Charleston, Savannah. We lived in Charlotte at the time. And she said, would you do my box lunches? And I went, sounds easy. And so I learned how I like to cook, but I hate to cater. So that was a big lesson. Came up here and needed distraction from all of Will's medical problems. And my other one had the same heart problem, by the way. So you need to learn how to put things on the back burner. And um, I had a friend who had a clown troupe, and she invited me to study with her. And a year later, I started a company called Clowning Around. So I was a professional clown for 6 years, which was very, very good for me and very fun. And and then I started the outreach division of a private school. I've had many iterations of the careers, and I'm pretty good at doing it now, and know what to look out for. And it doesn't make it a lot easier, but it does help to have a guide for sure.
One thing that I think is so interesting that you remind us is that the skills and coping strategies that we learn during caregiving help us in after caregiving too.
You
And I
bet.
think, yeah,
Bet.
what I think is so fascinating is we kind of think, oh, that stays there in the past
Yeah.
and it stays with us. And we
No.
can pull from it to really make our day a little bit easier because we learned
Right.
how to make those hard days a little bit
Yes.
easier for us.
And you
So
learn
that's,
how to respond to people. I know you know this. People say silly things. They don't know what to say, so they say something silly. And I'll never forget somebody asked me, I was with a new client up in New Hampshire, and he and his wife took me out for dinner, and she said, "Do you have kids?" And I was like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know how to answer that because one was alive and one was dead, and I didn't want to destroy dinner. It was, you know, and and then I was a couple of years later, I was in a place where I was the speakers at this conference were all talking about loved ones who had died, and I didn't know that was going to happen, and I was in the second row, and I couldn't leave, and somebody said, there's a place online that we have conversations. She said, put this up on there. And the best thing I learned of that was learning how to respond to some of those silly things by saying, ask me to tell you a story about the person I was caring for. Because that takes you in a completely positive direction because you can talk about what you loved and what you love. And some of those little things really are things you don't expect, right? And
yes. Yeah.
they come up.
I've written a book around beginning again after caregiving ends, and it's a guide. So that's the title. I'm
Yeah,
in the process of updating it. And
cool.
one of the insights that I'll offer in the book is that it's always helpful to have an exit strategy because you're
Yes,
not sure what you're ready to manage. And
you are
people will
right.
say, out. You've been
Uh,
inside for too long. Come out. And you think,
right,
well, I guess I could go out. And then you
right.
go out and you think,
You're a mess.
oh,
Right,
it's
right,
not either the right
right,
time, the right
right,
day, the right people, the right
right.
situation. There's just something
Absolutely.
about it that's not right. And you can feel
You are so
trapped,
right.
which is a terrible
It's
feeling. And
terrible.
if you have an exit strategy, which could
Right,
just be stepping into the bathroom, giving yourself a few minutes, and then checking, do I need to go home? Did
right,
this little break give me enough to go back? And then doing
right.
what feels right and good for you.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think all the time is enduring is not a coping strategy. We endured
No.
so
Horrible.
much during our caregiving experience.
Right.
We cannot
Yeah.
continue to endure. If it's not
No.
right for us at that moment, it's not right at that
Yeah.
moment. But
And
could
nobody
change.
understands.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could change, and we can give ourselves permission for it to change and then
Yes.
change when it changes.
Right. Yeah. If you haven't walked the journey, it's hard for people to understand, and it's not their fault, but they really don't know how hard it is sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the questions around, for instance, how many children do you have? Which sounds innocent enough, and it's
Innocuous,
not.
right?
Yeah,
No.
it's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a uh, friends whose daughter died when she was 4. And, navigating that whole conversation about how many
Yeah.
children do you have? It comes up
Right.
all the time.
All
How
the
many
time.
children?
Yep.
And you think, how do I answer this? How do I
Yes,
answer this?
that's a
Yeah,
really, and I learned to say I've got one in Michigan and one in Evan.
yeah,
That just stops it right there, because it
yeah,
gives them permission not to go any further, and I don't want them to.
yes, yeah.
So,
And they don't know how to go farther with it,
correct, yeah,
right? Yeah,
right, yeah,
yeah. I always think there's parts of our caregiving story that we just want to keep private. And I think about this other
right,
situation. So a friend of mine shared this story. A friend was caring for her mom, and her mom said, I'm done. So I'm not going to live any longer. And I'd like it to help you. I'd like you to help me so I don't live any longer. And the daughter did. She helped her mom. And
yeah,
it was awkward then when people would say, what happened that your mom died? And she
right.
was trying to figure out, how do I
Yes,
answer that question?
that, that's a
It
big
was,
one, right?
yes,
That's
right? So
great.
I do
Yeah,
think it takes us a little bit to come up with really
yes,
simple answers that are
yes,
truthful and
but
yet close the door
leave
on
it on
anything.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
leave it on it, right,
yeah.
that's
I'm
great.
curious, Dale, why was this an important event for you to be a part of?
Well, I walked that journey for such a long time, and it just called me. I mean, I work with now I work with people to reimagine retirement. And so it's not a gigantic leap, because it's all shifting your mindset against what the prevailing thought patterns are in the culture right now. I asked somebody the other day how he defined somebody, that he was talking about elderly people. And I said, define elderly. And he said, oh, 65, 70. I went, you are really out of touch, David. So, I said, I think, um, I know that I walked that journey for such a long time, and I know how important it is. And it's just something I would like to do.
I think part of the mind shift is allowing ourselves to give ourselves a chance.
Yeah, and think differently.
Yes, and I think we worry about I'm too old, right?
Oh,
Or
oh,
yeah, or I'm too so for
do
me it
whatever.
was yeah, there's always a two. I'm too the
Right,
other part of it is I don't have enough. I don't have enough training,
right.
education,
Uh,
experience,
yeah,
right? So we could go either way. I have too much or I don't have enough. And so then we decide, well, I can't. And in truth, I think it's much more important that we consider the possibility and then think, how
absolutely.
could this become a reality?
I will probably tell the story of Dr. Audrey Evans, who is head of pediatric oncology at CHOP. When she was in a residency in Britain, they told her she couldn't be in pediatrics, somewhat ironically, because she was a woman. Because she was an old girl, and she was 80 when she retired. But before she retired, one of her patients was a child of one of the Eagles football players. And she treated the whole family and noticed families were sleeping in the hospital because they couldn't afford a place to stay. And she got to know them, got the team involved, got the general manager involved, who got McDonald's involved, and she started the first Ronald McDonald House. But
Oh,
she retired when she was 80, and there are 300 of them now.
wow.
She retired when she was 80. She was bored for 2 minutes and starting to get depressed, and she started an inner city middle school in North Philadelphia that is 16 years now, has a second edition, have just bought a third property, and a fourth property. Third property is for K through 3, and fourth property is to put an assembly, a gym, and a trade school. And she died at 92, 2 years ago. I
Wow.
mean, she didn't let anything stop her. So I
Yeah.
think those are the people we need to look at.
And I also think we have to consider our world right now needs good people doing good work.
Boy, no
And
kidding. Yeah,
yeah, and good people doing good work could just be impacting their neighborhood. It doesn't have to be something that
absolutely.
is so
No,
large that you feel like,
no,
oh, global. if it impacts your neighborhood, that's your
Right.
world, how fabulous is
It
that?
could be tutoring a bunch of kids. It could be any number of things. But learning to sharpen your observational skills around you is very important. Yeah, not everybody's meant to do anything so global as that,
Right.
um,
Yes,
at all. But what's important is that she didn't let anything stop her. So,
yes,
and she didn't
yes.
take herself. She's a very humble person
Mm.
too seriously.
There are going to be challenges for us, especially as we move into life after caregiving ends, when life feels different. We
Right.
also might feel the pressure of time. So we just talked about it's never too late, but you do feel the pressure of time. You think, I
Yes.
have time now. How am I going to use it? And so then you do feel a little bit of, I got to make the most of this. So there
Yeah.
are challenges, and you can take a break and can
Sure.
still continue. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be at
Right.
a pace that burns you out. It's a
No,
pace that offers progress, a break, progress.
absolutely. There's no rule on that.
When caregiving ended for me, my body was so sore. When my dad was dying,
Yeah.
I thought, I think I need to have every joint in my body replaced. I had a hard time
Wow.
walking, and I was a
Yeah.
walker. I thought, how am I
Yeah.
gonna, what is this gonna do to me now? And
Carrying a different
I
kind of
really,
weight.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really committed because I was so stressed. I was so stressed. I had been tense for years, for years.
Right. Right.
And I committed to stretching. And then a friend said, why don't you come strength training with me? And so then I started strength training again. I had done it in the past. And so I started up
Yeah.
again. And every day I think, thank goodness I started because I
Yeah.
feel better today. And that's exactly what you can do. You can start and keep
Yes.
going, and progress will motivate you to continue. We can't wait
Absolutely.
for motivation. Motivation comes after progress, and the only way you
Right.
receive progress is by sticking with it a little bit
Yes.
every day, a little bit every day.
After Will died, we had COVID and I slept for 3 months. Literally. I was so exhausted and I had no idea how exhausted I was, but everything was shut down. So it was really easy to do that. There was nothing calling, nothing was hardly anything was open. And that was just a gift. And
Yeah,
then I was ready to start re-entering the world.
how, wow, like, does that really represent what a caregiving experience takes from you? Is the ability
Absolutely.
to just sleep
And just
and think,
relax.
yes, you can't
Right.
relax during caregiving, which
Right.
is
Mm-mm.
right? Like, here I am like this, and I
Right.
knew I needed to relax. I did everything I could
You
think of. I
can.
mean,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
still was walking, I was
Yeah.
swimming, I was venting, and it still was,
Yeah. It's a
oh,
hard road. It's a hard
yes,
road.
and for you to sleep for 3 months, wow,
I know. Says
wow,
everything you need to know about that experience, yeah. And I think
yes,
that was the accumulation of all of those years. It wasn't just
yes,
1 year, it was all of them. And I had no idea how completely exhausted I was.
right, because in truth, you really could not relax from the day he was born.
No, no. 3rd day of his life, they came in and said, "I'm so sorry to tell you this. We're gonna transfer him to another hospital. We think he's gonna have to have an open heart day 3." He had 8 catheterizations before he was operated on at age 2 3/4. It was crazy.
The pressure to keep him alive.
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
yeah, the intensity of what word would you even use to describe that kind of intensity?
Right. It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and oh, yeah, which is why it's helpful for us to get together and
Yeah,
talk with others who understand what happens after caregiving ends so that
absolutely.
we can
Because
get support to keep going, to keep
you're
going.
so right. Yeah. Because the going is, once you start moving into that new place, you start to you do sort of start to relax and you start to see what possibilities there are, which is really the important thing.
Because that's hope. Then you have
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
Dale, this was fabulous. For our listeners or viewers who would like to learn more about your work, what's your website address?
It's shareyourcourage.com.
Okay, shareyourcourage.com. And again, you'll be able to connect with Dale during our 6th annual virtual Beginning Again retreat, which is October 25th. Dale, is always great to see you. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Denise. It was fun to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to this.
Yeah, I
Thanks so
am too.
much.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Be sure to stop by caringourway.com to register to join us on October 25th. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.